thank you for the very kind introduction. It's a great honor to be on a panel with these wonderful women speakers and rights activists. I'd like to start off by wishing everyone a very happy, belated International Women's Day to all my fellow panelists and attendees. Today, I will be discussing the challenges that Christian women specifically face in India as double minorities according to both their faith and their gender. First off, I'd like to explain that, as has already been covered by my fellow panelists, violence and discrimination against Indian Christian women and India faith minority women does not occur in a vacuum, but is part of two broader trends. First, the pattern of violence and discrimination against Christians in general and any individual or group that does not subscribe to the majority Hindu faith, and the pattern of subjugation of women in a society that devalues them. In its yearly report in 2021, the Evangelical Fellowship of India's Religious Liberty Commission reported 505 instances of hate against the Christian community, including threats and harassment, physical violence, false accusations of blasphemy or conversion, desecration of houses of worship, arbitrary arrests, hate speech, and more. 16 of these incidents occurred on Christmas Day alone. With regards to Indian Christian women specifically, violence against them has increased remarkably over the past couple of years. In July 2020, in Jharkhand's Kunti district, the body of 25-year-old Christian woman Suman Munda was found outside of her home. It is believed her murder was motivated by her faith. In August 2020, in Faridabad, 4 Christian women went to the police to report that earlier in the day, a group of Hindu extremists had verbally abused them just outside of their home. The police had informed them that they would be safe and that they would be increasing security outside of the women's homes. But the following day, the same group of Hindu extremists returned and dragged the 4 Christian women outside of their home and beat them on the streets while others watched. One woman, 43-year-old Sushma, had been left unconscious and in the hospital for a week after the incident. Reports by Persecution Watch and Open Doors also reveal that persecution of Indian Christian women have increasingly been sexually violent in nature. In November 2020, 20-year-old Christian woman Jyoti William was found deceased in her apartment in Punjab with injuries indicative of violent sexual assault and a vicious struggle. In Open Doors' India Country Dossier, covering the period of October 2020 to September 2021, at least 38 Christian women were subjected to rape, attempted rape, and other forms of sexual violence. In other incidents, Christian women have been targeted by state anti-conversion laws, as Reverend Dr. Evangeline noted just before me. These laws, while they attempt to crack down on allegedly fraudulent religious conversions, have been misused to falsely accuse faith minorities of coercive religious conversion. In February 2021, a group of Hindu extremists ambushed a Christian prayer meeting and began assaulting participants, including 2 women, Sonari and Suroma. Afterwards, the perpetrators dragged the 2 women to a local police station and baselessly accused them of conducting forceful religious conversions. Fortunately, interrogations revealed that the lack of evidence behind the allegations meant that Sonari and Suroma were absolutely not guilty of any crime, and they were released from custody. However, the accusations against them had lasting detrimental implications on their lives, as they were disowned by their family, kicked out of their family home for allegedly disgracing the family by refusing to renounce their faith. In March 2021, a group of 4 nuns from the Sacred Heart Society were on a train returning to Delhi when a group of Hindu extremists entered the train at one of its stops and began to accuse the nuns of religious conversion. Rather than exercising due diligence and investigating the allegations, authorities swiftly arrested the nuns and held them for hours for a lengthy interrogation. It was only once the national rights advocacy groups across India heard of the incident and began campaigning for the nuns' release that they were actually set free. A dangerous combination of factors makes it both very easy for crimes to be committed against Indian faith minority women and Christian women with impunity, and also very difficult for survivors of these crimes to seek justice. In a culture where misogyny and patriarchy persists and victim blaming is commonplace, women survivors of sexual violence on account of their gender and faith are discouraged from seeking accountability, and even when they do, it is likely to be met with unfavorable results. In 2021, Indian editor Tarun Tejpal was acquitted of sexually assaulting his junior colleague in an elevator 7 years earlier. The court judgment found that Tejpal had simply made a shameful lapse of judgment and suggested that the woman was at fault for wearing a short dress and being allegedly promiscuous. In a similar way, faith minorities are often blamed for transgressions upon them on account that they are following a faith that does not align with the Hindu majority. In fact, in numerous instances, notable leaders have called for violence against these faith minorities. For example, in August 2021, Hindu nationalists held an anti-Christian demonstration in Chhattisgarh's Bastar district, during which they shouted slogans, "Let us drag people from the church and beat them with shoes." Secondly, I would like to highlight one major factor of anti-conversion laws in Indian states that my colleagues at ADF International that I work closely with have discussed before. And though this doesn't apply exclusively to incidents involving women, it is relevant in that it affects Christian minorities and faith minorities, and thus is a factor to consider, especially when considering cases such as Sonari and Suromas. These anti-conversion legislations cast the burden of proof on the accused to prove that they are innocent rather than on the prosecution to prove that they are guilty. In the majority of cases of accusations of fraudulent conversion mentioned in the Evangelical Fellowship of India's report, authorities are quick to arrest Christians without warrant on mere accusations and file charges against them when absolutely no proof or otherwise dubious evidence is provided. All of these acts of violence and discrimination against Indian Christian women and Indian faith minority women are unfortunately not surprising to us when we consider that both women and faith minorities are viewed as second-class groups in society. Therefore, changes must be made not only at the legal level to protect women, faith minorities, and those who dually fall under both of these categories, but also at the society level. And I'd like to close my remarks by referring to something that Ms. Akriti said earlier, that feminism is the strongest and most viable opponent to Hindutva. I'm a strong believer in faith and strength in numbers, and women make up nearly half of Indian society. I think now is the time, as all of the other panelists have stated, to join together women from all corners of Indian society, Dalits, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, to combat Hindutva, which subjugates them. And so I hope that's a hopeful note to close my remarks on, and thank you once again for inviting me to speak.